Hello and welcome to this module. It's called High Performing Teams. This module should be seen, you should definitely watch this module with the leadership one as well, because this is going to be short, it's going to be high level, it's going to be an introduction to the importance of building a team and moving them from a group to a team, and some of the things that you need to be aware of to do that. But central to that is going to be your leadership skills. So make sure that you watch this one in conjunction with the leadership skills one as well. My goal with this one, again, like all the other modules, it's high level, it's introductory, it's supposed to answer your big questions and leave you with some tools and techniques and an awareness of how to achieve things. In this case, how to turn a group of individuals into a high performing team, well, at least a team, and hopefully a high performing team. That's my goal. So let's see how we do. The real world out there is that generally project team development is usually done in it's an ad hoc manner, or it's an occasional manner. It's not deliberate. You've got tensions between the project manager and the functional manager. But we all know that skilled individuals working together as a high-performing team deliver project success. So just remember that projects aren't delivered by robots. They are delivered by individuals working as a group and hopefully working as a team, and if we're lucky enough, working as a high-performing team. So that's what we want. And a lot of the times I see team development just as a nice to have, and people will accept individuals that don't get on, groups that don't work really well together, or poor performing teams as an acceptable solution. The magic in project happens when we can get high performing teams. So I actually want to start this module by just getting you to think for a moment about your own experience. And I want you to think about if you've ever been part of a high performing team. How will you know if you've been part of a high performing team? Well, you probably missed that team, or if you're still in it, would never want to leave it. You'll know that you get on really well with everybody in that team. You'll know that everybody appreciates everybody's different skills and values different viewpoints, strengths, and skills. You'll know that there's honesty and openness. And you'll know that what you produce could only be produced by a high-performing team. So just have a think about that. Are you currently, or have you been, part of a high-performing team? When I look back over my career, it's nearly 30 years long. I know that I've been part of a high-performing team on at least one occasion, maybe two, but definitely one occasion. So it's not something we should take for granted that you're ever going to be part of a high-performing team, or that every team that you will be part of will be a high-performing team. You're certainly going to be part of teams, and you probably are part of a team right now. It might be a good team, a great team. But our goal is to get you to high performing. I mean, there's a real synergy there, a real magic that happens. What about the other question there on the screen? Have you ever been part of a low performing team? This is a group of people who just do not like each other. There's conflict, there's arguments, there's overlap of skills, and the team just doesn't perform because of the team dynamics, not because of the skills and abilities of the individuals. Once again, throughout my career, I know I've been part of a low-performing team once. I actually chose to leave that team because the manager in charge of it didn't seem to care too much about it. So our goal is for you to be putting together your high-performing team. And you're going to start with a plan. Like all good parts of project management, you're going to need a resource management plan, or you're going to need a team development plan. Now, a lot of the times in the profession of project management, we use the word resources to apply to people as well as bulldozers or servers. I've always been bothered about that because resources are something we extract, resources are something we use and use up, and resources are something that we discard or renew or recycle. And personally, I don't like using the word resources to apply to people. So for me personally, when I say resource management, I'm going to be generally referring to bulldozers or servers or something like that, a real resource. I prefer to use the word people. So the first part of your project management plan will be your people plan, or your human, if you have to use the word human resource plan. And this is your plan, how you're going to set down the skills you need, how you're going to get them, how you're going to train them, how you're going to keep them. And I've broken that down into what I call my 5 R's. Well, there's 7, but there's 5 major ones. And the first one is that your particular plan will be how you're going to recognize the skills and experience and attributes that you need working on your project. So you need to list, we need this many builders or developers or software coders or surveyors or concrete people, or whatever your project is. You'll need to list all of the skills that you need, the level of experience, and the sort of personal attributes that you need. You can then use that, there's 2 smaller R's, roles and responsibilities, to turn that into, well, job descriptions essentially, which outline roles and responsibilities. So you can definitely do that as part of your plan. That's part of the recognizing who you need and what they need to be able to do. Then your plan will figure out how you're going to get them. How are you going to recruit them? Are they going to come internally? Are you going to be negotiating with functional managers to get these people? Are you going to be looking for secondments? Are you going to be looking for contractors or full-time staff? Are you going to be going out to the market? Are you going to be getting consultants in? Are you going to be offering short-term contracts or full-time contracts? How are you going to go and get these people that you do need? So this is what your plan will also set out. And it'll be different for different roles. Some people will be part-time, some people will be full-time, some people will be salaried, some people will be contracted, some people will be seconded. Then you're going to have to consider how you're going to reward them. Or remuneration as well as another R. How are you going to pay them? What else apart from money are you going to reward them? Is there going to be regular recognition? Is there going to be career advancement? Are you going to give them training? What else are you going to do for these people to reward them? This should all be in your people plan, your human resource plan. You're also going to have to consider how you're going to keep them. How are you going to retain them? Again, career development opportunities, training opportunities, performance assessments, performance reviews, professional development plans. How are you going to keep them? Because people may be tempted to go to another project or another organization. Now, the last R here is just pretty much unique generally to projects. If you've done the first module here about project management foundational concepts, you would have heard me talk about there's 2 types of work in the world: operational work and projectized work. Operational work is repetitive and ongoing, and the business is there to stay in business forever. Projects have a defined time frame and a deliverable, but that time frame means that sooner or later the project's going to end. So part of your project planning for people is going to be how you're going to let people go. And when you're going to release them, some people will be released during the project. You only need them for part of the project work, but you're going to have to consider how you're going to release them all at the end of the project. What sort of legal or process-based elements do you need to tick off in terms of handing them back to functional managers or finding them other work, or if you need to, making the whole role redundant. And certainly it's how you also have things like that farewell party and things like that. So this is the sort of things that you will be planning as part of your project management plan. And I would call it my people management plan. You may call it your human resource plan or team development plan, but you will need to recognize the skills and experience you need with defined roles and responsibilities. How are you going to get them or recruit them? How are you going to reward them? How are you going to retain them? And then finally, how are you going to release them? These are all the elements of a good project plan. And it's all part of your project management plan. It's one of the subsidiary plans that you'll put together. Now, what we want to do, obviously with the goal of all of this, is develop a high-performing team. That's what we want. Now, we've got individuals. These are the individual people. If you just put individuals together, you don't have a team. You just have a group. That's what I call a group of people. A team, like a sports team, works together for a common goal. And that's what we want to get this group doing. If you put a bunch of individuals in the middle of a sports field, they're still a group until you put them in the same uniform and tell them the rules of the game and get them playing the game. Then they become a team. So we want to move from individuals to groups to teams. Now, we want to move from good teams to great teams to high-performing teams if we can. That's our goal. And we'll be doing this continuously throughout the project, by the way. It's not a one-off exercise or a one-off initiative. So what are some of the characteristics of high-performing teams? And this is that question I asked you early on, have you been part of a high-performing team? Well, they share a sense of common purpose. They believe in the project, they know the reason for the project, and they want it to succeed. Been some extreme examples in my career. I remember many years ago I worked for, best described as an eccentric CEO, and he had an unusual way of telling us that we had a common purpose in that project. It was actually about setting up a new industry, and he would regularly tell us that the incumbents out there would be hunting us down, and we were in warfare with them and shooting from the trenches, and that it was a bit extreme, but it gave us a sense of what we were trying to do with this new startup, this new business. Your purpose, and if you've already done the leadership module, that's great. But if you haven't, in the leadership module, you'll see that one of the attributes of a great leader is the ability to communicate a vision. So hopefully you'll be communicating your vision for the project, a successful project, happy stakeholders, repeat business, whatever it is, and that becomes the sense of common purpose for your team members. A high-performing team will recognize and make effective use of everybody's individual talents and expertise. They'll know that somebody has a strength in this area and they're not so strong in that area. They'll partner them with people who have complementary skills, and they'll recognize people's individual talents, even their personal attributes, whether they're introverted or extroverted, detail or high-level orientated. They'll have balanced and shared roles so that not one or two people are doing most of the work. They'll make sure that everybody's having the same sort of contribution to the team. They'll maintain a problem-solving focus. Now, this means that you'll get people to think not just if problems arise, but how to get around it potentially. Me personally, I always get a bit annoyed when somebody comes to me with a problem without even thinking of a solution. I love it when people come to me with even a ridiculous solution. If they've got a problem, because then at least in figuring out why it's not right, we might figure out what's wrong, what is right about it. So keep people focused on problem solving, not just, oh, there's a problem, we've got to stop work, or we don't have the ability to get around it. A high-performing team will accept and possibly even value differences of opinion and expression, and allow that to be handled in a constructive way, even using functional conflict to have open discussion and disagreement in a respectful way. A high-performing team will encourage risk-taking and creativity, because high-performing teams are generally working in a complex environment. So you need to be doing something new, taking those risks, and being creative with your solution. Every individual will set their own high personal performance standards, and this will be reflected in the team. This will be about when they work, how they work, the quality of the work. They'll just have high personal performance standards for everybody in the team. And finally, members of high-performing teams will identify with the team. They'll want to be part of the team. You might have a team name, you might have a team logo, but they'll be proud to be part of that team, that project team, and they'll tell others that I'm part of this project team, and they'll identify with it. Again, that links back to that common purpose and vision. So some of the attributes that contribute to high-performing teams are the following 9 things. Now, these don't guarantee a high-performing team, but certainly the absence of these will make it harder to get a high-performing team. The first one is 10 or fewer team members. Now, there's a reason for this, is once you start to get too many people, a greater chance that sub-teams or subgroups will eventuate. If we take it to the extreme, do you think it's possible to get a high-performing team of 100 people? Probably not, because that 100 is probably going to be at least 3, 4, 5, 6 different teams within there, or subgroups and little wee tribes that exist within that. So the fewer the better, frankly. And you may have heard of the Scrum methodology, which is a particular agile approach or methodology. Well, it's called Scrum because it's the optimal number is 8 or fewer people for that same reason. And the inventor of Scrum was just he appreciated the game of rugby. And in rugby, if you know the game of rugby, there's 8 forwards and 7 backs. So there's 15 team members, 8 and 7, and the forwards, 8, will form a scrum and work together to win the possession of the ball or keep possession of the ball. So fewer team members, more is more. You'll get that chance to have a cohesive group rather than separate groups or subgroups forming. Voluntary rather than compulsory membership. So people who say, I want to be part of this team, please let me be part of this team. That's better than you will be part of this team, whether you want to or not. Continuous service to the team. It provides stability. People who are there from the beginning to the end of the project, rather than people who are working on the project at the beginning, then they move off, other people come on, and you're constantly changing staff. So continuous, full-time rather than part-time assignment. So people who work Monday to Friday, rather than people who just work Mondays or Tuesdays who will put in 3 hours this week, 16 hours that week. So those two go together, continuous and full-time. We're looking for stability. We're looking for a space for that team to grow into a high-performance team. An organizational culture of cooperation and trust. Sounds simple, doesn't it? I certainly came across an organization recently, actually, that said that its top value was trust. But then when we asked why they didn't give project managers delegated authority, they said, we don't trust them. We had to point to that big statement on their intranet that said, we trust our team. So do they trust you? Do they give you delegated authority? Do they believe in you? Do they back you? Does it permeate the culture? Or is the team trying to do that in isolation, which would be very difficult? Now, this one here, very difficult in today's world. Members reporting only to the project manager. Because most of the time, the world of project management is done in matrix organizations where the team members report to the project manager, but also to the functional manager. And we have these terms in project management, strong, medium, or weak matrix environments, which indicate how much strength the project manager has over the functional manager. So a strong matrix environment would indicate, it's matrix, but the project manager has more power over the staff than the functional manager. A weak matrix would indicate that the project manager has a lot less power than the functional manager. So keep that in mind. Who they report to ultimately will dictate whether they can become a high-performing team. Because if people know that their time on a project is limited and sooner or later their functional manager is going to allocate them to other work or give them that next career development or that promotion, that's where their loyalty will lie, not to the project manager. If you can have all relevant functional areas represented on your team, rather than having to bring in consultants or contractors or specialists that come and go, that's a great indicator of high-performing too. Again, as we mentioned on the previous slide, that the project has a compelling objective, a really strong reason that can be communicated. What are we doing? Why are we doing it? And get people to believe that. Now, the last one is going to lead us nicely into the next slide too. Members are in speaking distance of each other. Co-location. Now, this is really important, and it's one of the hallmarks of high-performing teams, but also agile teams. One of the hallmarks of Agile, one of the foundational principles of Agile, is people within speaking distance of each other. And there's a reason for this. Humans like to see each other. We know that the virtual world is increasing and we're increasingly being asked to work in virtual ways. Heck, I'm delivering training to you virtually at the moment. It's become the norm. But that doesn't mean it's the best. It's okay, it's sufficient, it's good, it's acceptable. But putting people in a room together where they can see each other, speak to each other, allows all of those little subtle relationships to build and messaging to get across, and people to really see each other and pick up on body language and trust their gut about whether they should trust the person, which is some of the problems with virtual teams, which we'll discuss in just a moment. So if you can get all of those 9 factors going, you've got a higher chance of getting a high-performing team. It doesn't guarantee it, and you can have some of them missing. You can, I've certainly been part of high-performing teams where members just don't report only to the project manager. In fact, the one high-performing team I have been part of, definitely, they reported to me as project director, but they also reported to their functional manager, who happened to be my project manager. So the project manager reported to me as project director. They all technically reported to him. but we worked it out, and we did really well. So these are the things to keep in mind. Don't have big teams full of people told to work on it who are there for a short time and a part-time basis. Don't have people reporting to the functional manager. Have all the functional knowledge that you need. And this one is really important. And you'll often see project teams putting together a war room or allocating a certain space just for them to sit. Okay. So what are some of the problems with the virtual teams? Because it is the norm, isn't it? Increasingly, we're being expected to work in virtual environments. Well, they've got a specific challenge. Okay. Look, they're acceptable, they're fine. You'll get a good team, but you'll never get a high-performing team with virtual, no matter how hard you try. Keep in mind, we are people. And no matter whether you're introverted or extroverted, humans are a social animal. That's the way we are. We are a social animal by nature. And that means our society and our individual relationships are built on seeing each other, which means we can see, we can pick up body language, we can hear cues in the words. Heck, we can even smell people if necessary. And that's what we really need to build really good relationships with people. And a great individual relationships is a hallmark of a high-performing team. So they do have specific challenges around developing trust because of that exchange of social information. Virtual teams don't ever meet for coffee and just go, what did you do this weekend? How was your birthday party? How's your family? How's that sick parent of yours? Things like that. They don't do that. They interact virtually with defined meetings and text and things like that. So there's a lot of things that are missing. Also hard to set clear roles. I know I'm working with one project manager at the moment, and they've been working remotely for the past 9 months, and their manager has just asked them to start. They only work 3 days a week, and their manager has just asked them a couple of weeks ago if they can start coming into the actual office one of those 3 days a week. The office is only 20 minutes away, by the way. And this person went, oh, actually, I probably should have thought of that myself. I shouldn't have had to wait to be asked. But they just jumped into this pattern of just working virtually. They only live 20 minutes from the office, so they're going to start going in one of the 3 days a week. So in terms of getting around some of the challenges to try and level up, I guess, or increase the performance of virtual project teams, try and have face-to-face if at all possible, whenever possible. So I currently work in some virtual volunteer teams. I do a lot of volunteer work in the project management community, and most of that work is done virtually. We have monthly meetings, we contact each other during the week on Teams, we send emails, and we have a SharePoint site. But we do make it a point of 3 times a year getting together face-to-face to talk about the same stuff we would talk about online, but we know that it's really important that we do get to see each other, have those strange little conversations and get to know each other and shake hands and exchange all the other information. So whenever you can, try and get face-to-face whenever possible. Try and figure out ways to keep team members informed on how their overall project is going, whether it's an intranet site or regular announcements. Don't let team members vanish. Really easy in a virtual world. That person's working from home. You only see them once every second day on a scheduled meeting. What else are they doing? Just check in with them. Whatever technology you're using, make it live so you can quickly send them a Teams message, Slack message, Google message, whatever it is, and just check in with them. Just don't let them disappear. Don't judge them solely by their work output. Keep them engaged. Have that code of conduct with your group agreements that people can sign into to say, how do we avoid delays? When do we let people know that they need help? And establish those clear norms and protocols for people being honest about the assumptions they're making about their role and any potential conflicts as well. Get this all out in the open, get it written down and post it up on the SharePoint site or the intranet site or on the Teams site or Slack site, whatever it is. And then here's one that's particularly poignant to me. Share the pain in terms of multiple time zones. Now, obviously, I'm based in New Zealand. That's the bottom end of the Pacific. There's not many other countries that share my time zone. The nearest time zone, there are some Pacific Islands, but my nearest time zone is actually Australia, and that's 2 hours behind me. And you start heading back around the world, and a lot of the teams that I deal with internationally, well, Australia, Papua New Guinea, China, India, Europe, Africa, and obviously you get to the United States, and there's the East Coast, West Coast, plus all the times in between. Um, and I know I had a client regularly. I had a client recently in the Middle East, and they insisted on team meetings at 4 p.m. their time, and they wouldn't budge for it. Wouldn't budge. Well, that was midnight or 1 a.m. for me. Well, and every meeting I had to get up to at midnight or 1 a.m. because they were the client, I was the consultant. 4 p.m. suited them. So I got up at midnight and 1 a.m. in the morning for those meetings, and that hurt. In terms of the volunteer groups that I'm part of, with the project management community, we're very good at rotating it. And I know that I've just joined a new volunteer community, and there's somebody from Australia on that. And everybody else on that team was either from India, Europe, or United States. And I know he's happy that I'm on board, because he was being asked constantly to get up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, his time, which would be, middle of the morning, middle of the day, United States time, early evening, Europe time, and late evening, sort of India time. He's happy that he's got somebody else from this part of the world on board, because we've already started adjusting the meeting schedules. So everybody takes a turn getting up at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, or 3 o'clock in the morning. So keep that in mind with virtual teams. But look, I just want to stress, virtual can be good, but you'll really struggle to have a high-performing team with virtual teams. Now, the other thing you do need to be mindful of with any team environment is, because they are made up of individuals, you're probably going to get conflict at some point. Conflict manifests in lots of different ways. Outright arguments, right? But it can also be withholding information, or slowing things down, or talking about people behind people's back. That's dysfunctional conflict, and you want to stop it. One of my strengths is being able to deal with conflict openly and honestly. I'm very good at it. Well, I think I am. Maybe I'm not as good as I think. And if we get instances of dysfunctional conflict occurring, we do not ignore it. We actively seek to resolve it. We get people talking. We get them to understand different points of view. And that would be what we call mediate the conflict. We step in and we try and get them to sort it out. So on a project I was called in to manage recently, there was one particular person who just created conflict wherever they went with their particular brash or rude, I guess, interpersonal style. So I had to sit down with them and ask them, were they aware of what they were doing? They weren't, because they thought they were just being factual and truthful and to the point. And I did point out that that's not how others perceived them. And I asked them to think about that. So I acted as the referee there to try and get them. Another one project I did a few years ago, we had one person who was absolutely abysmal. He was a software engineer, and he was the only person who knew about everything. But every time he opened his mouth, people just either abused or insulted. We actually had to pull him off the project from an interpersonal way. We had to keep him from a technical way. We had to negotiate with his manager that he just wasn't allowed to talk with people. Anyway, so that was probably an example of controlling that particular conflict. So you're going to go through these steps. First, try to mediate the conflict, where you act as a referee. Arbitrate, which means you get in an independent person to either do a binding or non-binding agreement, saying this is the ways you will work. That can obviously be a senior manager. You can just set rules around how you will talk to each other, how you will respect each other, and the things that aren't allowed, or are and aren't allowed, and the consequences of those. And that may include letting people go or eliminating the conflict as well. I've had to do this on one particular project many years ago. Ironically, it was a communications person. He was a very poor communicator. We had to let them go. I explained to them why. And we got another person in. And then finally, you maybe have to tolerate it. Maybe that's just a better example of what I had to do with the subject matter expert. We had to just come up with a way to keep him on board for his technical expertise, but nothing we could do would get him to change his interpersonal style. So the key thing here is never avoid or ignore dysfunctional conflict. Deal with it. It doesn't go away. It just gets worse. Now, at the other end of the spectrum, you can have functional conflict. You can have respectful disagreement. One of the things I like watching is a couple of really talented engineers who respect each other having a big disagreement about a particular solution. And I've seen some great examples of this, but they'll do it politely, professionally, and respectfully, outlining their points and disagreeing very strongly, by the way, but doing it politely, and even at the end of the day, changing their opinion and listening as well. So you can do that. And as you'll see at the end of this module, I'm going to show you some of the problems that can come around from high-performing teams, some of the pitfalls, including groupthink, by the way, or bureaucratic bypass syndrome. So encouraging people with different points of view can stop all of this too. So bring in people. There's also, I'm not sure if you're aware of it, but years ago there was Edward de Bono's the 6 hats of thinking, as a way of brainstorming or creativity. And one of those hats that you'd get people to wear was the black hat, the devil's advocate, the person who would try and find everything that was wrong, just so you could say, well, let's see if we can fix that. So that's designating somebody to be the devil's advocate, saying, please try and challenge us. Do it in a good way though, and we'll try and counter your arguments. And then ask the team also to consider an unthinkable alternative. Really challenge people to that functional conflict. Challenge them to think outside the box, outside the square, whatever it is. So that's why conflict can be done. It can actually give you creativity and new solutions. Dysfunctional conflict we do not want and we do not tolerate at any point. Now, as part of developing the high-performing team, and this links beautifully in with the module on leadership, particularly one of the 5 exemplary practices from Kurzes and Posner, which is the one, is it rejuvenate, encourage the heart. So if you've done that one, it's the encourage the heart, which is the 5th of 5 exemplary practices of great leaders from the Kurzes and Posner model. And if you haven't done that yet, that's what you'll be looking for there. But it's responsibility of the project manager to take responsibility for the project team and keeping them well, keeping them happy, keeping them motivated, keeping them on board. And we do this by team building, by the way. Now, keep in mind, team building is not a one-off session. I see plenty of managers who think team building is something you quickly do when your performance review is coming up, and you take everybody out for a movie or for a dinner or mini golf or putt-putt golf or something like that. That's not team building. That's part of team building. Team building happens every day. Okay, and it's done by the leaders, the project managers. So you can have your own rituals. These could be celebrating people's birthdays or milestones, or asking about the family and things like that. You can take off-site breaks as a team. You can invite people to dinner or for coffee, whatever's appropriate for you as well, and see if they want to come off-site. If they do, that's a good sign, by the way. You can view an inspirational message or movie. There's a great book actually on leadership. It's called something like, it's in the leadership module. I mentioned it at the end of the reading list. It's called something like a very short, fairly interesting and reasonably cheap book about studying leadership. It's a great little book. It's got everything you need to know about leadership in it, by Brad Jackson and Ken Parry. I think of the 2 authors there. But they've actually got a whole list of movies you can watch to help build a team. So that's really good in that book. You can have the project sponsor or another senior manager regularly come in and talk to the team about how valuable the team is and how much they appreciate it too. So that's how you rejuvenate, and also just listening to people. What about also this? What about leaving notes for people or giving them online recognition? So consider this. If you went into your desk tomorrow and there on your desk as you approached it, you could see a handwritten note. And you go, oh, it's a handwritten note. And as you got closer, you saw it was from your manager or your boss. And you go, what are they going to talk about here? Why have they written me a note? And you turned it over, and there in their handwriting was a simple note that said, hey, just wanted to thank you for the effort you put in last week. You're a great team member. We really value you. Thanks for being part of our team. How would you feel? You'd feel really good, right? Well, when was the last time you did that for somebody? So here's my challenge. As soon as you finish this module, get off and send somebody a quick thank you note. Look, if it's in handwriting, that's really meaningful. Just send them a note over Teams or Slack or a quick email saying, hey, just appreciate you last week, today, whatever. It helps them too. Maybe you'll get it back. But some of the formal techniques, team building sessions, they can turn bad, by the way. Some examples that I know of is the team that went on a whitewater rafting day. Didn't go too well. One person got a broken nose because they went forward and hit the helmet of the person in front of them, and 2 people got hypothermia because they went in the river and got cold. And there was another one. Again, these are extreme stories, but they just illustrate that not all team building goes well. There was another one where a project manager had a new or a project director had a new project manager appointed. It was a small team, like 6 people. New project manager joined, took them all to a high ropes course. You may have been to one of those ones in the forest or whatever, way up in the air, and you got to, and found out that one of their team members was deathly afraid of heights and had to be pulled down by emergency services. So sometimes team building doesn't always work. But look, movies or something. I know it's very popular at the moment, those escape rooms. They're fun, but ask your team what works for them, because you'll invariably find somebody goes, oh, I didn't like that. Okay. So that's what you want to do is make team building a regular, fun activity, whether it's informal or formal techniques for team building. Now, I'm just going to run you through 3 very simple but well-known models for team development. And the first one is a model by a guy called Bruce Tuckman from, I think it was like I want to say the 1970s. It may have been earlier. But Mr. Tuckman came out with a model that is just, it's just a general guide for explaining. I don't think there's a lot of science behind this to say this is definitely how it works, but it's a convenient model to help us understand the stages that individuals will go through on their way to becoming a high-performing team. And you'll see that little animation running there, which gives you a clue. And generally what it says is that when people first come together as a group, the individuals, they go through what's called forming stages. And this is where they're getting to know each other, understanding that they're part of the team, setting the rules, just coming together. They're not a high-performing team. That's where we want them up here, as high-performing. They're just coming together, they go through forming. And then generally after that, they'll go through what's called storming behaviors. This is, some people explain this like humans like to know where they are in a hierarchy, who's alpha, who's beta. There's not a lot of science to that as well. But people like to know where they sit, and also what their relationships are. Are you going to be my friend? Are you going to be my enemy? And you'll see storming behaviors. And they can be as simple as taking somebody's seat in the cafe that they sat in yesterday, but they can also be extreme, like literally withholding information or arguments. One of the storming behaviors to watch out for is gossip. If you ever find 2 people or more people gossiping about an absent person, that is a form of bullying and a passive-aggressive behavior. It is a form of storming behavior, so don't allow it. Now, some teams will get stuck here, but moving through this isn't a predetermined conclusion, by the way. There are plenty of teams that will just get stuck at forming, many teams that will get stuck at storming. That's where they just get stuck. So you want to move them through this, and if you can move that, you'll get them through to norming. This is where the group rules are established and everybody accepts them. They know what time they turn up for work. They know how hard they work. They know everybody's strengths and weaknesses. They've got through storming and then norming. This is where we want to get our teams to minimum. Okay. Now, if we're lucky enough and we work hard and we do all the right things, we might get them to high performing. Now, when Bruce Tuckman first released this model, it was just those 4 stages of forming, storming, norming, and performing. The world of project management got hold of it, and because we release people, projects have an end, we come up with the best rhyme we could, which is adjourning. Doesn't really work, but it just recognizes that we're going to let people go, and the way that we let people go tells the people remaining what we really think of them. So on that note, I'll tell you a story of a small consultancy I know of, that when somebody leaves the organization and resigns, their resignation goes straight to the CEO. And the CEO generally gets that resignation pretty fast and acts on it, comes straight to that person face to face, by the way, doesn't ring them or email them, straight to them and stands with them and says, hey, got your resignation. Well, we're really sorry that you're leaving, but we understand that at this point in the career, we can't offer you the opportunities that you seek. So look, we wish you all the best. And we just want to let you know that we only hire the best. You are the best. You can have a job here whenever you want without an interview. I've seen this firsthand, by the way. How do you feel listening to that? Yeah, that person's leaving, but it tells the people behind that they're genuine, that the company is genuine. It really does appreciate them. So make sure when people leave, you say goodbye to them properly. Anyway, if you can get people through forming, storming, norming, you might get them to performing, but that's an unstable state, by the way. It's an unstable state. You can have, it can go backwards. You go all the way back to storming. You'll find people arguing for whatever reasons. Somebody new joins the group, you're probably going to go back here. Somebody leaves the group, you're going to go back there. Any changes to the group composition, like people move from full-time to part-time, you're going to drop back. So it's an unstable state up here that you just have to try and work at and hold them up here. And if you can do that, you'll have a high-performing team. But again, look, it's just a convenient model. I've got people through this in an afternoon, by the way. I've literally had a team that came together. They were definitely forming, getting to know each other. Then they started the storming. They were stuck at storming. I literally just sat them down and showed them this model and said, guys, we're stuck here because of this is what I'm seeing. We had a great discussion. It was a really good discussion, actually. And we got to there. Okay. And sort of started to move to there. But it was only 3 months long, that team. So we never really had the opportunity to fully embed practices, but we definitely got through that. Okay. So it's just a nice, convenient model. Okay, so that's the Tuckman model of team development. And the next one is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Now, I have a problem with this because, well, look, it's a simple model, but it wasn't when it was published. When Abraham Maslow first published this back in, I think, the 50s, you have to go check the Wikipedia page on that. Email me if I'm wrong on that, by the way. He actually published a book on what it took to be a fully self-actualized spiritual human being. His focus was on what it took to be fully self-actualized spiritually, right? And then over time, the human resources departments have sort of taken this model to sort of describe what it means. Self-actualization now sort of means a fully engaged employee. And that's not what Maslow was really talking about. He was much deeper, much more spiritual. But again, it's a convenient model. It's no science behind it, just to be clear. But it's a good way to think about what really motivates people in the workplace. And if you replace self-actualization with fully engaged employee, you can sort of see that, that people have to take care of their lower order needs first. And whatever their lower order need isn't met, that will be their driving factor. So you won't get fully engaged employees if they do not feel their physiological needs are met. If they can't pay for groceries, if they can't pay for rent, they're not going to be a fully engaged employee, because this is going to be the thing that's really driving them. Those physiological needs of shelter and food there. Security. Do they feel safe at home? Do they feel safe in the workplace? If they don't feel a sense of security, do they have job security? Do they always feel at risk with their job? Do they actually feel physically threatened? They've got to have that sense of security. And if they do not feel that, they won't be a fully engaged employee. Do they feel like they're part of the workplace? Do they feel they're appreciated for who they are? Do they, do they know that their strengths are accepted? If they don't, they won't be a fully engaged employee. And then, are you recognizing and rewarding them, giving them that sense of purpose and self-esteem? If you're not doing that, then you're not going to have a fully engaged employee or team member. So again, there's no science behind it, but it's just a nice model to say, look, if people are worried about paying their rent or not being able to pay groceries, that's where their needs are going. That's where their interest is going to be. So if you can help them take care of this, that, and that, then you've got a better chance of being a fully engaged employee. Look, it's a nice model, but on top of that, please go read Abraham Maslow's original work, and it's a nice piece of work too. Okay. There was another one too that I was going to show you, and I will show it to you, so that the recording's just going to pause while I bring it in. There, I bet you didn't even notice that magic. I just saw one of my slides was hidden and I needed to unhide it. Ta-da! Bit of magic there. Okay, the third one, so actually I just need to adjust that one again. The recording's going to pause while I make a quick change. Ta-da, you didn't even notice it, did you? Just do a quick edit there. I love this technology. Okay, this one, the third one, so we've covered Tuckman's model, and we've covered, what was the last one we just did? The theory of motivation. Maslow, just did that one. I should know that, but it's been a few minutes in my time, only 30 seconds in your time. The third one is McClelland's human motivation theory. And look, This is a really good way just to recognize that people aren't always motivated by money. There is a video by Dan Pink on YouTube which builds on this, and it uses a similar concept. So there is a video online, and if you want to go to YouTube and just search Dan Pink, The Surprising Truth About What Motivates Us. He's got a great TED talk there with a great animation. So please go see, I'll write that there so you can see it. It'll be Dan Pink, The Surprising Truth About What Motivates Us. So do go on YouTube, go search that one. Okay, but McClelland has a similar theory, and I think Dan builds on it anyway. Follow Dan anyway. He's really good on what motivates people, things like that. Basically, the theory is that money motivates people. Absolutely. We're all motivated by money up to a certain point. And above that point, people tend to be motivated more and more by other things. And Dan uses mastery, purpose, and autonomy. McClellan uses achievement, power, and affiliation. And I guess I can explain it to you like this. If you're on, let's just say, by Western standards, $50,000 a year, and I offer you an extra $10,000 a year to work harder, you probably will. But if you're on $500,000 a year and I offer you another $10,000 or $20,000 or even $50,000 to work harder, then money's probably not going to motivate you. Now, there has been some science about the level at which money stops being a motivator, and it's different for every culture and different countries. But there is some evidence that says that above a certain level, once we've got all of our basic needs and we've got discretionary income, money stops being a primary motivator and begins to trail off. And then in that instance, there's other things that will be motivated by a sense of achievement, a sense of power and affiliation like belonging, or from Dan Pink, mastery, purpose, and autonomy. So it just means that there's somebody may not respond very well to a proposed pay increase, but a new job title that's more senior, or the opportunity for training for their career development may be a better way to reward people. So I guess it's just, don't assume that it's money all the time. It is money for some of the time, but above a certain amount, people may be motivated to work harder or faster or longer by one of those things: achievement, power, and affiliation, or mastery, purpose, and autonomy. So do keep that in mind. It's not just about the money. Okay. Now the final slide here is, as I mentioned earlier on, you can put in all this work and have a great high-performing team. Absolutely, they're really high-performing, but that doesn't mean necessarily it's always going to be good, because there are some potential pitfalls of high-performing teams. Absolutely. These are some of the more common ones. The first one is groupthink. Nobody says no. Everybody says yes. Everybody's afraid to disagree with the dominant way of thinking. They don't speak up, or they buy into it. And I certainly know of a major IT project here in New Zealand. It was over $100 million, completely failed, absolutely failed, and delivered nothing. And as they did the post-mortem on it to figure out what had gone wrong, one of the reasons was groupthink. They sort of discovered that team members wanted to speak up, but they didn't feel they could. Other team members just simply believed what senior management was telling them. But groupthink, watch out for it. And that's where like that functional conflict elements of having somebody challenge the way of thinking and act as devil's advocate is really good. Next one is bureaucratic bypass syndrome. The group thinks that they're so good that the rules don't apply to it. Those procurement rules, no, they don't apply to us. Those reporting rules, no, they don't apply. Those spending rules, no, they don't apply to us. They apply to other people. So watch out for that one, okay? If they think they're so good that the rules don't apply to them. Team spirit becomes team infatuation. So pride just simply becomes conceit. We're not proud, we're better. They're worse. We're the best. Nobody could be as good as us. So a sense of pride becomes that sense of conceit. And then finally, and this one's quite interesting, team adoption. You see this all the time. I do a lot of consulting for government departments, and government departments have a policy of seconding their staff to other business units inside the department, or even to other departments. And there's a standing joke that once seconded, they never come back, because they go to the other group and they love it so much they don't come back when they're supposed to. But you certainly see this, that you may lend team members to another team, they want to stay there. Or you've got a project team that's doing so well, they don't want to go back to their functional group, and rather than do that, they'll resign from the organization once your project comes to an end. So just watch out for that. There are some potential issues with high performing teams. Generally, it is always good though. So that's what we want you to strive for, are those high performing teams. Start with a plan. How are you going to get your people, retain them, reward them, recruit them, all of those things. Specific roles and responsibilities with job descriptions so everybody's clear. Organizational charts, RACI charts, all of those things. These are all the things you want. So have you been paying attention? By now, if this is not the first module you've done, you'll know that this is just a little game at the end. So I've got some words here on the left-hand side, got some definitions on the right-hand side. So the words are Maslow's hierarchy, performing, groupthink, functional conflict, and co-location. The definitions: A is a theory that says that people must fulfill lower order needs in order to be fully self-actualized. B, an unstable state where a team of people is working at its best according to Tuckman. C, a phenomenon that occurs when a group will not tolerate dissent and everybody thinks the same. D, a way of getting people to disagree politely and generate innovative outcomes. And E, ensuring that your team members are physically sitting in the same space. So let's see how you go. What is Maslow's hierarchy? Is it A, B, C, D, or E? Hopefully you said it's a theory that says people must fulfill lower order needs in order to be fully self-actualized. What about performing? What's performing? Is it B, C, D, or E? Hopefully you said it was B, an unstable state when a team is working at its best according to Tuckman. What about groupthink? What do you think about groupthink? Is it C, D, or E? Hopefully you said C, a phenomenon that occurs when a group will not tolerate dissent and everybody thinks the same. What about functional conflict? Is it D or E? What about co-location? Is it D or E? We'll do the last two, because if we do one, it automatically means the other one's the last one. So functional conflict is a way of getting people to disagree politely and generate innovative outcomes. And co-location, ensuring that your team members are physically sitting. So there we are. And that's obviously I just went straight across 1A, 2B, 3C, 4D, 5E, just to throw you off if this isn't the first one that you've done and you're used to the arrows going in all the different directions. So there we are. Look, just recapping, sit down, do your people plan, your people management plan, your human resource plan, set out how you're going to answer those 5 R's, get those job descriptions, those organizational charts all done, showing who people report to, RACI charts. We didn't really cover those, but responsibility, authority, consulted, and informed. Have those so everybody knows who's responsible for what. And please always invest in your people. Remember, robots don't do projects. No matter what the rise in artificial intelligence is or will be, projects are always going to be done by people. Getting those individuals, those creative, crazy individuals to work together as a team is where the magic happens. So spend your time as a leader, as a project manager. Hey, look, you may even be a project team member too. You can contribute as well to team development and team performance. Don't accept dysfunctional group. Try and at least get to good team. And if you're lucky enough, get to high performing team. And look, on that note, I would love to hear from you by email. If you've been part of a high performing team, drop me an email and let me know when and why and what made it a high performing team. I'm always uplifted by these stories. But look, thank you so much for your time. I'm grateful once again that you've gone through this. Hopefully you've learned something. It's a reminder that it's all high level, it's all introductory, and also a reminder, as with all the other modules, an invitation from me. Look, if you've got any questions at all about project management, whether it's something in this module or anything at all to do with project management, you've got access to me. Email me or message me, and I will do my very best to get back to you as fast as possible. But yeah, thank you very much, and have a great day.